grew up in Alabama, right north of Birmingham. My father was a coal miner there. When I was a child, for some reason or other, I realized that I needed to get an education, a technical education. And so I planned accordingly. Even when I was a child, I was reading a lot of books and everything. And then, of course, when I graduated from high school, I headed off to college. I wanted to get a technical degree from a good university. And so there were only 3 or 4 schools at that time that offered a co-op program where you basically were paying your own way to school. And so I wound up going to Auburn University as a co-op student. My major basically was engineering physics with a minor in mathematics. And as a co-op student, what I did was I would go to school 3 months and then I would go to Oak Ridge, Tennessee to work for 3 months in the facilities there. Well, initially when I got a graduate degree from Auburn, I was what I call a bench scientist, which is you're designing experiments, you're conducting experiments, you're taking data, you're writing reports on that research, etc., and you're publishing papers. I did that for probably 20 years, I guess. We were basically interested in the physical properties of materials, materials that were associated with energy production of various types. I got a lot of experience in materials, and over a course of time, I had a lot of experience working with other national labs. And so out of that, I became a technical program manager, managing technical programs for the Department of Energy at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Well, one of them was something called the Space Power 100 program, which was a program where they were trying to develop a nuclear reactor for deep space propulsion and electricity generation. It was called, as I say, the SP100 program. I was the program manager of that for a few years. That one was never used. That one was never used by NASA. The reason it was not used is that they did not want to send anything into orbit that had not been fully tested on the Earth's surface. But to test a system like that on the Earth's surface is very complex and rather dangerous. So that one went by the wayside. The technology I worked on was preparing materials for deep space power generation. When you go into deep space, you're so far from the sun that you can't use photoelectrics. You certainly can't use wind turbines because there's no wind out there. So you have to have something to provide the power. And about, maybe 1965, 1970, along through there, they decided they were going to have to use plutonium-238 to power these deep space missions. Well, plutonium-238 is rather dangerous. And you can get on the literature and you can read some of the hazards of it. And so what we have to do is we have to develop systems that will completely and safely encapsulate the plutonium-238 to make sure it's safe for use. There's 2 specific problems that they worry about. One of them is an accident on the launch pad, say the rocket explodes. So the hardware has to be good enough to contain the plutonium-238 to keep it from getting out. So that's one problem, a rocket explosion on the launch pad. The second problem is what we call a flyby. To get enough speed to go to distant planets, the space missions have to whip past the Earth to pick up speed. And initially, the Cassini mission was planned to come within about within 200 miles of the Earth's surface. And because of environmental concerns, they did kick it out to about 300 miles. But it came within 300 miles of Earth, coming at a very high speed on a flyby before it headed off toward Jupiter and then Saturn. So those 2 areas, those 2 times are very dangerous. Cassini was a vessel that was designed to go out and investigate Saturn and its rings. It turned out that there was a window opening for getting to Saturn. Saturn is a long way away, but if they could launch 1997, 1998, then they could do this slingshot effect around Earth and then get all the way to Saturn. And it took about 7 years to get out there, even with the slingshots. And if you didn't meet that window, then you had to wait about 20 years for Saturn to come back around again, so you'd have another shot at it. So things had to be done in, well, sort of in a hurry. We had to be careful, but we had to do things very quickly. It had more plutonium-238 on it than any mission had. I think it had about 72 pounds of plutonium-238 there. To do this safely, what you have to do is encapsulate it in an iridium alloy. This iridium alloy was developed by scientists at Oak Ridge National Laboratories. Basically, this is iridium with 0.3% tungsten and a little bit of thorium in it. So this material is so good that it will withstand the rigors of time and heat and everything. And even if the capsule comes back and hits the Earth's surface, plutonium-238 will be contained. So one of the things we did was develop the iridium alloy and make the iridium alloy capsules for encapsulating the plutonium-238. So that was one of the things we did. Oh no, Cassini went in orbit around Saturn. In July of 2004, it actually went into orbit, and it stayed in orbit around Saturn for all of this time. And it wasn't until last year that they decided to fly it into Saturn and let it disintegrate there. And that's what they did just in 2017. So all of that time, 40 years or something like that, it's been putting out power. Well, it launched in '97, so 22 years it's been sending back signals. As a matter of fact, there were two systems that were sent out. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were both launched in 1977. And those are still sending back signals. And one of them is all the way outside our solar system now, still going, still sending back signals. If you get on your passport and look at the last page, you'll see a picture of a generic spacecraft. And on the end of two, what look like rods sticking way out, are two radioisotope power systems. And those are the ones that were made for Voyager 1, Voyager 2, and similar to the ones that we made for Cassini as well. Oh, it makes me feel really great, because you feel like if you had not played a part and played a significant part and done a really good job, all of this may not have happened. In other words, it's like a long, long chain. And if you didn't do your link just right, you wouldn't get the information you needed. Everything had to be right.